Um, but yeah, the last 2 days were definitely pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, not surprising at all that
Yeah,
they'd be good. Those are two very good professionals. Thrilled that they were able to fill in when I was unable to be here. Everything is a okay with me,
you
and
feeling good?
yeah, feeling good enough.
Okay.
Did what we need to do,
Yep.
and excited to be back here on this whatever day it is. It's Friday, right? It's
Yep.
Friday, and I missed an interesting Wednesday because that is the day that John Keim and Jeremy Fowler revealed their or published their story on ESPN.com that revealed a bunch of details about the Commanders' season and kind of where this has all gone wrong for Washington. And I think that there's a lot of stuff in there that was on the record for the first time of things that I had heard, things that we had hinted at, perhaps even on this show. Some of the disgruntled players with Eric Bieniemy, some of the reasons why they were disgruntled, from play calling to scheduling. And I thought it did a very fair job, Anthony. I'm not sure what Linnell and Doc said when discussing it over the last couple of days, but I thought it did a particularly fair job of saying, like, specific to the Bieniemy stuff, that some of it might be players and coaches who are not up to the winning standard. And that was kind of my thing in the preseason, right? Was like, these guys are going to learn what it takes to work. Like, Bieniemy knows what it takes, and it's probably going to rub some people the wrong way. And I think the piece does a good job of laying out that as kind of one side of it, and then also Bieniemy just being unhinged at certain points about certain things and not knowing when to let up at others, and kind of presenting both sides. The players feel ground into the staff is like super overworked, even by NFL standards. That the players feel like there's just a bunch of nonsense happening in terms of their schedules being jerked around in ways that were just unnecessary. And it's like, hey, man, I know you did everything this way in Kansas City, but you don't need to change everything here. Our off day isn't going to determine whether or not we win or lose. It is going to run a bunch of the rest of our lives, and we're used to it this way. Why do you have to change it on us? And I think that there's the NFC executive who's quoted in the piece as saying, like, well, there's guys in, like Mahomes and like Kelsey who needed that punch in Kansas City. But I think then you see the failure of Rivera over the top of it all to kind of be the steadying force and be the head coach to say, like, hey, all right, EB, you're going to have all this power, but I'm going to be the cooling saucer. I'm going to be the check. I'm going to be the brakes while you're the gas. And that's something that obviously Eric and Andy Reid had a great relationship with over the years. Now, Andy will push guys too, and Ron can push people. But like, Ron felt so hands off, which makes me actually think back to the question I asked him. Remember in the preseason or the first couple weeks of the season, Anthony, and I kind of did the whole "What does Ron do now?" segment. And so instead of just pontificating on the radio about it, I went out to Ashburn and politely asked Rivera, like, so what do you do now? And the longer version of the question that will actually get answered, that doesn't sound like I'm questioning why he exists, was along the lines of, so you've delegated a lot. That's something you've built up the ability to do over the last 4 years. How do you spend your time now? And he talked about mentoring assistants and obviously being there as a sounding board when need be, and getting to spend some more time on individual things as opposed to being this big overseer. And I wonder, it's my opinion that Ron went too far the other way, that he got way too hands off. And I'm not saying that Ron's like the world's best head coach and has like a perfect touch with this stuff. And if his hands were on, then, they'd actually be, headed towards another 500 level season with a chance to go on a late run and finish in the playoffs. He's not good at it, and that's kind of the point. But it would certainly be better than this. And I think that some of the behind the scenes nonsense that has happened, and the not even nonsense, the behind the scenes consternation that has happened, probably wouldn't have. And I think that actually I'll save that for next, because there's a larger point in terms of where the balance is that I think is like my big takeaway from this. But like, when you read the story, like what to you stood out in terms of wow, that's really a huge problem, or like, wow, that sounds bad, but I don't think it's actually that bad. Like, what are the details that resonate with you?
I think it's more so along the lines of, we've been stuck in just mediocrity like for so long, and I feel like EB he does come from he was coming from a winning franchise, a franchise that had been in the Super Bowl and the AFC title game for several years in a row. So, in my understanding, I'm like, all right, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's coming over here. He's giving these guys, instruction on, how to be competitive, and just guiding them and trying to like prepare those guys because he knows what it takes to, get them to that championship pedigree. So my trust is in him for real, for real. So if we got players, complaining and saying, oh, it's Eric Bieniemy's way and things of that nature, guess what? Your way got you to like where you are, like where we've been the last, decade or so in mediocrity. Eric Bieniemy, he's coming over here. He wants you guys to work. He's going to push you. And I just don't think our guys have like, responded the way I think everybody else would really want them to have responded. And I think I was talking to you about, this guys and like, people being player coaches and like this generation responding to this style of coaching as opposed to like years past and things of that nature. So it's more so I just don't think these guys have responded in the way that I would have possibly responded or, people of the past would have responded.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And that actually is kind of the big point I want to make next. Why, in some ways, nobody's wrong, but in some ways, everyone is wrong when I read this story specific to the stuff about Bieniemy. And I think the same kind of principle that I'm going to talk about can be applied to Del Rio as well. So I'll explain that, kind of the art of coaching side of this that I think really sticks out and something I've touched on before this season. But this story does a great job of illustrating the failure of the coaching staff this year to do the thing, not to be smart about football, not to X's and O's this, to do the thing that they're charged to do, coach. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope you're having a great Friday. Today, Anthony, I think is actually the earliest sunset of the year. I believe that's factually accurate.
Oh, man. So does that mean, that's why the sun is right here shining bright. Well, you probably can't see it, but behind this camera, it is shining.
Well, and then it's going to be gone soon. Wow, I just got super blurry if you're watching on YouTube. Come on, camera. Focus. My camera is clearly mine. It lacks focus. But wow, it really is not wanting to do the thing.
It's not.
There we go.
Oh, there it is.
All right. Now that we're back in focus, I can pay off the T's, as they say in the business. So to me, the ESPN piece, Anthony, that John Keim and Jeremy Fowler published earlier this week highlights a point that I have made multiple times this year that really comes down to the art of coaching and the science of coaching, whichever way you want to look at it. There's a failure. There's a mix of both to be successful, and there's a failure of both by pretty much everyone involved in the Commander's staff this year, which is it does not matter how brilliant you are schematically. It does not matter how good your plan is if nobody actually follows it. So let's say I generally hate like war sports analogies. So I'm not really like being analogous here. It's a metaphor. It's a big, giant, disconnected metaphor, right? But if you have the world's greatest general tactician-wise, and I'm talking like 1700s, where George Washington going through the woods against the British are coming. I know that wasn't George Washington. People just stick with me here. Wow, this analogy is really tortured already. The point is, if you got the greatest battle plan in the history of battle plans, it's foolproof. Like, all you got to do is execute it. But you're really bad at teaching your troops how to execute it. And because of that, there's not a lot of buy-in. Or for whatever reason, there's just not a lot of buy-in. And all of a sudden, you get on your horse and you ride out to fight whoever you're fighting, in this case, because I'm torturing the metaphor, the British. And you turn around and you get to the battlefield and you see your opponent, and it's not a very good tactician. You know this guy. You got the scouting report. This guy sucks. You know that this guy's going to play right into your hands. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh, we got him. And you turn around and get your troops, and you're ready, except for you don't have any troops there. That's an issue. You need the troops. And that, to me, is the Commander's season. It doesn't matter if Bieniemy is right or wrong. It doesn't matter if the complications of Del Rio's scheme would actually work if the players could just freaking execute it. It doesn't matter what Rivera says or does if no one is willing to follow them or they can't follow them. Simpler is better than complex if people can't follow complex. The Tuesday off day might be better than the Monday off day, or whatever it is. The Monday off is better than Tuesday off for whatever strategic reason, except for if all the players hate it and they resent you for it. Because now you're not getting their best when they are in the building. The changes that have been made to this offense surely have made it a better offense. But it's nowhere near its max potential because along the way it has alienated some of its most important parts. It is very clear based off this piece and other public comments that Terry McLaurin is not happy with Eric Bieniemy in this offense. They have tried their best as professionals to make it work because that's who they are. They're two competitors that want to win and I think do have a healthy respect for each other. And Terry no doubt respects what Eric has done, and no doubt Eric respects what Terry has done. And that is why, apparently, according to this piece, they've had weekly meetings since that Giants game where Terry went as far as Terry will ever go in terms of publicly criticizing a game plan or a coach. But why did it get there? How did you not find a way in the preseason to make sure, and in the first couple weeks of the season before that, when you're still competitive? Remember, this team started 2-0. You had a chance this year. It didn't have to be like this. And they didn't find a way to make sure they stayed in a place where they could go along together. Together is better in football. It's just a two-dependent sport. Sam needs the O-line. The O-line needs Sam, right? We talk about the sack issues to take it even away from the coaches, right? Sometimes these sacks were because Sam holds the ball too long, just who he's been since college, if not in high school. Sometimes they're because the O-line didn't block anybody, at least not long enough. Sometimes you could just eliminate a sack altogether by having the quarterback turn around and hand the ball off. And that is another thing that I think frustrated many people around the organization in terms of fans and media, but also people within the organization. I think that when you have a quarterback that is as well liked as Sam Howell and as young as Sam Howell, for instance, the offensive line probably feels somewhat protective of him, like big brother type of protective. And I think that some of them probably look at Eric Bieniemy and go, you left our little brother out to dry. Like, we know we're trying our best to protect him, but you could just make it easier for all of us. Let us go hit someone. Let us run the football. By the way, Brian Robinson's pretty good. Antonio Gibson's pretty good. And whether or not that's correct or not strategically is not actually the point. Because while short-term, what Eric did might be better strategically, if you lose the football team and you look lifeless week after week, and you're not getting the best in preparation, you're not getting the best in practice, thus you're not looking good in the games, and your head coach doesn't seem like he's doing anything to fix it, all it's going to do is spiral out of control, which is what's happened. Coaching is about getting people to move in the same direction, no matter what direction that is. And when I say that, like, obviously you don't want people doing crazy whatever. Like, this is not, as long as it's a somewhat feasible plan. But in the NFL, in football in general, 11 together doing an inferior something is better than 10 doing the right thing and one person doing it wrong. And we've seen that defensively. One person screws it up, touchdown. 10 guys were doing it right. It was a great call, great idea. Doesn't matter if, because you had the perfect check. Oh, we should have matched this concept. We had the right call on. Well, how'd you get there? We checked to it because we always check to it. Well, did Benjamin St. Juste get the check? No. Is that happening every week? Yeah. Then it's not the perfect call anymore. You need to figure out how to play in a way that you have 11 doing the same. And you have 53 plus whatever practice squad, whatever, moving the same direction organizationally. And I think Ron Rivera failed as a leader to understand the impact that his coordinators' failures were having on the football team. He also hired them. So you can look at whatever level of failure you want to there. The coordinators did not do a good job, and the staffs below them are not good. And so you have position coaches, and some of this, I do think, to be fair, I wonder how much of this has to do with the ownership situation that was had. There's some mentioning in the piece about, like Snyder's ownership and the lack of spending. And like, if you look back at the offseason, how long it took to get Travell Wharton the offensive line coach job. Like, Travell was a Ron guy. The offensive line coach is a really important coaching position. Like, Drew Terrell leaves in the offseason. Where did Bobby Ingram come from? Was that an EB guy? Obviously, Tavita is an EB guy, but they've never truly worked together before. So Eric might have put way too much on his own plate by not having the right staff underneath him. And some of that might have been influenced by Dan Snyder not wanting to spend any money. I think you look at the defensive staff, you don't really replace Chris Harris with a quality coach. You get Brett Wieselmeyer, who doesn't make it 12 weeks into the season. So there's just a comprehensive failure to manage, big picture manage, comprehensive failure to little picture manage, to people manage, to expectations manage, to adjust and adapt on the fly. And it has to do with the same things that fail organizations all the time. Management of power and people. Who's in charge of what? How do they handle it? How open are they to feedback? And also expectation setting. Because I think what was done well early was it was very clearly established Eric's in charge of the offensive stuff. And I think that there's probably more of a tactical discussion to be had about some of the impacts, the way they practiced offensively had on their defense because, by the way, Eric set that all offseason for everyone. So, it's hard to pin, and by no means am I primarily or even secondarily pinning the defensive struggles on Eric Bieniemy. That would be ridiculous. But I do wonder with the change practice structure, how much impact that had, although I would say that's on the defensive coaches to either speak up and say, like, this is not going to work. We need this, and Ron to settle that in a way that's satisfactory, or for them to adjust to what the offense was doing if they signed off on it and be more effective at coaching. But the different schedule has an effect on them too. They haven't been able to stop the run all year and practice a lot against the run because Eric didn't practice running the football. So there's all of these tactical, human, power management stuff. And I think what this piece does a really good job of laying out is they pretty much failed on all of them, which is why they're 4-8. Or 4-8? Yeah, 4-8. 4-9.
Yep. This week 14, bye week, 4-9.
4-9.
Yep.
Anthony, math, that's where I fail.
It's all good, man.
It's been a lot of losses in a row. It's hard to keep count. The point is, it's not good. And one of the things that Logan and I talked about in Take Command this week is what are the characteristics that we've seen in successful assistant coaches that have gone on to be good head coaches. Every broadcast loves to show the picture of Mike McDaniel and Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, and all those guys that were here and some of whom I covered, all of whom Logan played for. So what did we see in them that we should be looking for in the next head coach? You'll hear some of that conversation coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Mark Kestecher going to join us either 5:30 or 6 from the NBA's in-season tournament in Las Vegas. And next, actually, we will go out to, well, actually, he's back in LA, but Clinton Yates has been in Nashville for Major League Baseball's winter meetings. Juan Soto, now a Yankee. And where is Shohei Otani going? We await that news. Yates joins us to discuss that and more next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope that you are having a great Friday. And right now it is our pleasure to welcome to the show for his usual Wednesday visit on a Friday, Clinton Yates. What's up?
What's going on, man? I am honestly exhausted, both physically and literally and figuratively, because I spent the last 5 days in Nashville, Tennessee, home of the winter meetings, where one Shohei Otani did nobody any favors by not signing while anybody was actually paying attention to this window. So that has been a long slog and brain drain. And quite frankly, as a baseball fan, I'm a little annoyed with it at this point.
Yeah. Baseball free agency is so weird to me because, like, I actually don't know when it starts. I know most things happen at the winter meetings, but there's not like this July 1st NBA-style deadline. Like, would baseball benefit from that, of trying to make it a la NFL free agency is now like that too, where there is like real, like, let's start this party now?
Maybe in general, but maybe not in general, but in specific for Shohei, I could have used a lot more fanfare. This whole vow of secrecy, if anybody says anything, then your chances are screwed deal, to me is just very lame. Like, I get it. He's a private guy, and I'm not mad at him as a player. I really enjoy his play quite a bit. But this all just feels like a lot of fanfare over what is effectively nothing in the context of what we're actually getting. And so it just kind of feels like, hey, man, you do know that at some point in time you do have to actually exude a personality in order for people to like you. Maybe that's just me, but it's all very exhausting, and I just kind of feel like MLB has not quite gotten what they wanted out of this process from arguably the most famous player that's ever played in their league.
Right. Well, that's the funny thing is, like, for years, MLB hot stove was like the free agency, even more than NBA, more than the NFL, certainly. And then NBA free agencies kind of started to blow up. Obviously, the decision was the big, pile of pyro there. And then, Durant signing on July 4th with the Warriors, and like all through the years, we've seen how that's evolved. And the NFL was like, oh, this is good. We need to make sure that we have like free agency specials on TV, and it's going to start at this time. And like, they've done a good job of that as well. And now hot stove is kind of in the background, where it's like, oh, in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, Juan Soto became a Yankee. And I think for the way modern media works, people are so much more interested in the transactions than the games in so many ways that, like, MLB's got to do something to catch up, Shohei or not.
You're totally right. And, as somebody who's a veteran of the winter meetings, this one felt particularly lacking in that regard. It just sort of felt like, what are we doing here? Because not only did Shohei not sign, but because of who he is as a player, that sets the market for a lot of other teams, both from a pitcher and a player standpoint, because he's a two-way guy. So it is legitimately affecting things around Major League Baseball, not just the particular fan desires of any one group or any one team. Like, you can't sign a bunch of people if you're waiting around for the big fish to sign to regulate the rest of the market. And I think it's just been kind of disappointing overall. I mean, sure, there might be news today. We're talking about who's going on private jets to where, what people's dogs are named, and so on and so forth. But, like, I could have used something closer to the decision, quite frankly, Gregory, because that would have at the very least been entertaining with some level of finality to it as well.
I think if ESPN, here's a hot take for you. If ESPN had better executed the decision and it wasn't at the Boys and Girls Club of Greenwich, that would be seen as like an amazing, smart way to do that.
Oh, yeah. And don't get me wrong. I do not fall in the category of people who thought the decision was a bad thing. Not remotely. I mean, yeah, it was a little overblown, but I'm not going to let the actions of some idiots in Cleveland who decided to start burning jerseys make me think that that wasn't pretty cool. I remember exactly where I was when that happened, and I will forever do so. So, I do think that there's something that both networks from a television standpoint, not just my own, but MLB Network as well, could do better. But I also feel like MLB's got to find a way to corral its stars, because you just can't have one guy jerking around a bunch of teams. And I don't say that loosely. I just mean that that's kind of what it feels like. When a manager like Dave Roberts gets castigated for even acknowledging that a guy visited the stadium, like, that's just ridiculous. This has gone a little too far.
For sure. Clinton Yates with us, fresh off the winter. Well, not fresh. He just got back from the winter meetings in Nashville. They were exhausting. Did any Woo girls crash the winter meetings? Was that add to any of the exhaustion? Having to dodge them?
What's weird about it is that it was in Nashville at the Gaylord. And if you've ever been to that place, it's like this big indoor resort that has like a ceiling that's it's all glass. So during the day, it kind of feels like you're outside, and at night, it's just dark with all the lights lit up from Christmas and so on and so forth. So being inside that particular facility for an extended amount of time, yeah, not exactly great for morale. But, we'll see.
Yeah. All right. As for Otani, the player,
yeah.
What is his two-way future? Because he's not going to pitch in 2024. We know when he is pitching, he's a Cy Young caliber starter, but he's also coming off his second major elbow surgery, second Tommy John. Is he a reliever moving forward? Does he do the John Smoltz thing where he goes from starter to reliever or closure? Is he just a hitter now? And how does that ultimately impact these contract negotiations? Because I don't want to pay him to be a two-way player if I'm not going to get a two-way player. But if I'm Scott Boras at his or whoever his agent is, he Boras guy? He is a Boras guy, yeah.
He's not a Boras guy.
Or he's not a Boras guy. Soto's a Boras guy.
Whose name is escaping me right now, but his agent is a former baseball player. And I'll answer your question in a second, but a lot of people believe that his agent is what's driving all of this goofiness in terms of everything, just trying to sort of make a name for himself. That's a little unfair, but it's also possibly partially true. As for your question, that is the smart baseball question, Craig, and I've been sort of looked at as an outsider for thinking and saying aloud, hey, this dude's not the same dude that you had the last 6 seasons, not even close. Coming back from double TJ is not a thing. It's happened, but it is not something that you can just reliably plug somebody in and say, yeah, he's going to be the Cy Young caliber pitcher, or that he's even going to want to pitch again. And that's where this big question comes in. And I think is a big part of what these negotiations are about. Which teams are willing to just pay him, even if it's not as a two-way player, but as sort of a social media content creator. That's basically what you're getting. It's very interesting because this is not unlike the Messi deal in MLS. This guy's huge. Wherever he goes, he's going to bring a certain bump to the market. So you're paying almost for more than just baseball on a lot of levels. Dude, double TJ for a guy who DHs when he doesn't pitch, it's a completely different scenario than we saw in the last 6 seasons in Anaheim. And I think a lot of baseball fans are going to have to prepare themselves for that. It's possible, and most likely, the days of Shohei as some robot who can do everything are kind of behind him just because of the limitations of the human body.
Yeah, no, without question. And I heard your boy Jeff Passan talking about this with SVP the other night, which he's like, Otani will pay for himself in a way that no other player in baseball will because of the social media, because of the media bump and all that kind of stuff. But still, if I'm a GM, I'm trying to win World Series, and that's
right.
That having no idea who I'm spending $500 million on seems less than ideal. Meanwhile, Juan Soto's a Yankee now. He was a National. He won a World Series. We fell in love with him. Then they had to trade him to San Diego. And I guess my question on this, Clinton, before we get to Juan in New York and what this could mean for them moving forward, but why did it go so wrong in San Diego? Because there is no way the Padres gave the Nationals all of that stuff that we are going to hopefully enjoy for the next decade here in D.C. to get a year and a half of Juan Soto and then trade him away to the Yankees.
Yeah, this is a straight-up professional botch by the Padres, and not just because of what they did, but it's because of how it happened. They basically need to shed payroll due to legitimate accounting errors from their front office, and Juan Soto was the only guy without a no-trade clause, except he was the best player on the team. And that is a problem. You couldn't get rid of your other guys who were getting paid more, the Bogarts of the world. There's various things I could go through, but what a mistake. If you're the Pods, man, if I'm a San Diego fan, I am livid that after doing all that to get that guy, you can't even find a way to keep him in the building because you've got money problems. It's embarrassing to the league overall, and I do think that there's something to be said also for the fact that for a guy who's, 25 years old to get traded twice before he's even gotten to his free agency, that's weird, man. I really hope that Soto finally gets into a stable situation because he's such a talent and he's such a player. And him being in New York, Craig, with that short porch out there in right field as a left-handed bat, I think it'll do him a world of favors. But overall, I think both of these teams, the Yankees and the Padres, have been kind of operating in malpractice mode, and both were desperate, which is why they ended up giving up so much to get a guy like that who hasn't necessarily been the greatest last season.
Yeah, so that leads to what now for Soto? Is he now a Yankee for pretty much life, or is there a chance that he's a free agent next year? And I don't know, the Washington Nationals could go knocking again.
I don't expect the Nationals to be the team that's involved in any talks with him in a free agent, but again, he's going to be a pretty popular guy in New York, I believe so. And I don't think New York trades for him without at least some guarantees that they have, at the very least, an inside track to keeping him. Again, Soto is one of the most exciting young players in the game, and if he's constantly getting shuffled around from team to team, I don't see that as good for Major League Baseball. I don't really even see that as good, quite frankly, for him.
No, that is not the Juan Soto shuffle we deserve. We know what that is. That's a bad Juan Soto shuffle. Clinton Yates with us. Of course, you can catch him top of the hour, by the way, on Around the Horn on ESPN. Real quick before we go, I'm sure this is where you guys start the show today. NBA in-season tournament. 1 to 10, what'd you think it was going to be? 1 to 10, what's it been for you?
It's been about a 5. Like, it's not that I don't like the basketball. It's not like I don't like the court. It's just bringing this weird feeling to me of like, what exactly are we celebrating here? Am I really supposed to consider the IST some sort of form of postseason clutchness or whatever you want to call it that I'm going to factor into what I think about how teams are going to do in the actual NBA playoffs? I don't think so. Like, if you didn't know who Halliburton was before this tournament, sorry, you don't like NBA basketball that much, you know? And like, do you hang a banner if you win it? It's a very weird situation. And like, LeBron had a great game the other night. I just remember thinking to myself, like, man, when this guy gets up, he really gets up for it and he wants it. And I'm just very curious to see how this goes in the next 5 years or so, because at the current moment, it doesn't resonate with me. I don't really feel it. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have an issue with gimmicks for gimmick's sake. This just happens to be a gimmick that I don't particularly like very much. And the sort of neutral venue part of it is what made it weird to me. When this is all happening on home courts, it seemed more normal. Now it just feels odd. I don't know why. But, it's produced some good basketball, some good unis. So I'm not mad at it. It just might not be for me.
I guess not. I feel like you're zigging when everyone else is zagging. I've loved it. I think that it's bringing out a competitive side that we don't see outside of the playoffs, which is great to get in December.
Yeah.
And, it's like the NBA's version of the NCAA tournament, not in that obviously that's what you play for in March Madness in college basketball, but like the tournament do or die element of it is, I think it's actually like you just can't help it. Like if you're competitive and it's win or in or win or go home, then you're going to play differently. And I think that the teams that have really embraced that are the two teams that are going to wind up in the final. To your point, I don't know what happened, like how you feel if you win, but it feels better than losing.
I don't disagree, but there's also a part of that really exposes to me how much and how boring some people consider regular NBA basketball, so to speak. Like, I watch the league night in and night out because I enjoy the product as is. It feels strange that for a league to kind of, I'm not going to say cannibalize itself because that's not what it's doing, but it puts such a flashlight on all the other things happening around the league that I guess aren't good enough to get hyped about. Like, it's just a kind of a strange competitive balance for me as a fan, never mind somebody who's covered the league for a while, that I just sort of think that could be happening every night, but it's not. What's going on there, But I'm not trying to yuck yums. It's just something that I think ultimately I will remember for how the courts look and how the unis look, not for necessarily, some guy lit it up in the NBA Cup final. That's not really doing it for me.
Yeah, no, this court, by the way, is one step too far. The Vegas court, super video gamey. Like we can't.
Yes.
We gotta
Mario Kart Rainbow Road, which
we gotta dial it back like 5%, and then they're gonna hit all the notes for me. We'll work on Clinton. Clinton Yates with us weekly here on the Hoffman Show. Appreciate you sliding around with me out in the middle of the week, hitting us up here on a Friday. Thank you, sir. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you next week.
Anything for you, Gregory. Appreciate it, and happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. That's Clinton Yates, everybody, with us on the Hoffman Show, with us on a Football Friday on the Team 980, driven by your local Honda dealer. Experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. See your local Honda dealer. When we get back, it is time for our weekend preview here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Mark Hessa's shirt locked in now for 5:30, live from Vegas in the NBA's in-season tournament. You'll hear some Take Command at the top of the hour. We will let you hear Logan Paulson's thoughts on what the Commanders should be looking for in their next coaching staff. What makes a good assistant? What makes a good assistant a good candidate for a head coach? So we'll talk about all that coming up at 5 o'clock. With Kesty at 5:30, we'll shift our NFL picks around a little bit, but we'll get it all in here on a Friday, as well as talking to Dave Johnson with the Wizards in Brooklyn tonight. Which means, Anthony, we can call Dave and be like, hello, Brooklyn. How you doing? Where are you going?
You think we won tonight?
Maybe. It's not the most. I mean, they played well last time out.
Yeah.
No, wait. It was. Yeah, no, it was last time out. They played Philly close. I mean, Joel had 1,000 points,
Yeah,
but
he had 1 billion points.
that was a 5-point game.
Game before that, I think they had a close game as well.
Yeah, so that'd be cool. Maybe if JP can start hitting some shots.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
That would be really nice.
Would thoroughly enjoy. I think we're going to be back at Capital One next week, by the way. I don't know if it's Wednesday or Friday. I think it's more likely Friday. I think I'll be at Capital One next week. So that'll be fun.
Is it? I thought you said. Oh no, that's in 2 weeks where we have a 30-minute show.
Yeah, that's like the week before Christmas.
Yeah, that's
the Friday. Like Christmas is on Monday.
Yep.
Yeah, Friday before Christmas. I think Georgetown plays in one of the tournaments, a tournament, and so we have like a 30-minute show. What we have now is a 2-minute edition of our weekend preview, Anthony, which is brought to you by
nobody.
You gonna watch the in-season tournament final?
Of course.
Of course you are, because it's a Lakers game.
It depends though. So I'm traveling to Miami after the show today.
You got
so
another,
if I have time, but I think I'll have time to be able to watch that game.
So it's 8:30 tomorrow night on ABC. By the way, I thought the TNT ESPN crossover is a kind of a fun idea, but also was a little wacky.
You didn't like it?
It was cool for the novelty, but also Mike Breen and Doris Burke have great chemistry, and then Reggie's just out there yelling stuff.
Oh yeah. And
it's the chemistry. Kevin Harlan knows how to manage Reggie Miller and not just manage him like Reggie's a child, but how to work with him. Yeah. And the Breen, Doris, Reggie, I think is a different. They sounded like people who had never been together, which is so hard because Breen's so good. I didn't watch as much of the late game, and when I did, it was mostly on mute because we had a friend of ours over, and it was kind of on in the background. But I think Kevin Harlan probably got the easier lift because he's worked with Doc Rivers before. So it was Candace and Harlan and Doc. I mean, the shouting back and forth between Charles and Stephen A. was pretty funny.
That is hilarious. That's my favorite part.
I'm going to ask Kesty if I remember. I'm going to try to ask Kesty when he's on the radio side. Were you jealous? Did you want a random, who did you get Dwayne Wade behind the scenes and we didn't even know about it? Did you get someone from Turner on the radio broadcast? But I think it was just Kesty and probably PJ, Carlissimo, their usual ESPN radio crew. But it was watching LeBron do what he did in the second, again, I had the game on mute in the background, and I could tell that, the crowd was going crazy. And, LeBron was, really it was just a gravitas to the moment that watching on mute over Rachel's shoulder from our dining room table to the TV in the living room that I still understood what was happening with LeBron last night.
It's unbelievable, to be honest. And I feel he's in year 21. You can't take these games for granted. So every time LeBron is on the TV, Craig, you best believe I am locked in, and we're rewarded with just greatness night in and night out. We typically see, people start to, fade a little bit, but Bron is
a little bit. There's 20 players maybe in the 76-year history of the league that have played his 21 years. Do you know who the all-time leading scorer is for a full season in their 21st season?
Vince Carter.
Yeah. You know what his average was?
He averaged 7.3.
I think it was 7.3, 7.9.
Oh, my God. Yo, that is crazy.
Don't pretend like you didn't see the same graphic I did on Instagram
No, I'm
today.
so serious. I'm so serious. I'm so
You
serious.
just pulled that out of Anthony's brain somewhere.
I was just guessing just now.
I think it was 7.9.
That's crazy.
But yeah, Vince Carter is the all-time leading scorer for a player in their 21st season with 7-point-something points a game. LeBron James is averaging over 25 a game this year in his 21st season. That is insane. Insane. And last night he does it in, he goes for
23 minutes.
31 in 23 minutes.
Ridiculous.
Like an all-time LeBron game. He's 152 years old. Which I've watched LeBron. LeBron James has been playing basketball since I was 13. I think that's actually where the show opened, the hour open that we have with Scott Jackson. Mm-hmm. We're talking about my bar mitzvah. Oh, yeah. I think we were talking about LeBron because wow. The same year that I was bar mitzvahed, LeBron was drafted.
That's a great year, Craig.
I am 33 years old and will be 34 in February. And he is still playing NBA basketball.
It's a good year. I'm just also the thing about the tournament, I'm just happy that it's so competitive. Like the guys are really out there laying everything on the line. Like LeBron's out there taking 3 charges. Like, dude, what are you're 37.
I can't wait for him to, by the way, to shut it down for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he
for
probably won't take another one.
I'll see y'all in the playoffs. I proved that I still got it. By the way, Tyrese Halliburton, the other star who has emerged, and good for Tyrese getting the love that he deserves. And I will admit, I didn't even know he deserved this much love. Like, neither did his teammates, by the way, a couple years ago. Like, he has done such a tremendous job, and Rick Carlisle's done a great job with him there in Indiana. Tyrese Halliburton was born on February 29th. He's a elite baby. February 29th, 2000. So he will turn 24 in February. LeBron James has been playing NBA basketball since 2003. Tyrese Halliburton was born in the year 2000.
Wow.
Bananas. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live on the free Odyssey app. Again, excited to watch that. That is the biggest item on our weekend preview coming up on Saturday night. Mark Kestecher called the game for ESPN Radio. He will join us coming up at the bottom of the hour. Next, though, Logan Paulson's thoughts on the kind of assistant coach the Commanders should be looking at to be their next head coach. That's here on the Team 980, live on YouTube at the Team 980, and streaming on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show, hour 2 on this Friday on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Normally 5 o'clock, time for Not My Beat. Our top story today, which we'll talk about with someone who is there, is the NBA's in-season tournament. Mark Kestecher will join us at 5:30 for that. We initially had Kesty scheduled here for 5 o'clock. The Lakers ran a little bit long with their media availability, but the man who is on the mic to call the games for ESPN Radio will join us this hour. Right now, though, different men talking into microphones, me and Logan Paulson, discussing the Commanders' upcoming coaching search and more. It was a mailbag edition of Take Command, but still want to let you hear it on this Friday on the Hoffman Show. Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. Greg Hoffman here, Logan Paulson there. Mailbag edition of the show here on the Commanders bye week. All right, next question comes from our guy Teresh, who's just Teresh works like behind the scenes in media, and he just always has the coolest facts. He always has the coolest stuff where he, like, great data, great this, great thinking, just great, like, thought-provoking questions. So he goes, I'd like for you, or for Logan and you, to share some examples of things he noticed from assistant coaches he's worked with that showed him they were capable of leading a franchise as a head coach and not just an X's and O's guy.
Hey, that's a really good question, because it's kind of hard to know. There is an element of, like, this dude's a brilliant football guy, right? Like, I think let's just take the guys that I worked with, like Sean McVay, for example. I think it was very clear very early on that he was going to be something special, because he had this ability not only to, like, understand football, and football was important. I mean, he was a grinder and a worker, but he also had this tremendous ability to relate to players, right? Like, he'd go through the hallway, hey, Logan, what's up? Hey, London, how you doing? And he'd have a little joke, and it was, like, very easy and for him to kind of relate to every single person. You take someone like Mike McDaniels, who was obviously very smart, even when he was here, very, very smart. And then again in San Francisco, very, very smart. But his personality is a little bit different. And you've seen that in, like, the countless social media clips. Like, he's a little bit quirky, a little bit funny, a little sarcastic. And you're kind of like, how is that going to play in front of a group? And there was a period of time before I got with him in San Fran, where I was like, I think he's a brilliant coach, but I'm not sure how that's going to play when he's the head coach. But again, he's kind of taken his personality and found a way to relate to players. Kyle, too, I think is interesting. Kyle, when I first was here with him, was a little bit standoffish. He wouldn't say hi to you. It was very kind of in his own head, very like a beautiful mind. I'm thinking about something all the time. And when he got to San Fran, or when I went to San Fran and he got the head coaching job, it was cool to see him kind of take the thing that he was excellent at and use that to relate to players. So he would never do a team meeting without film in front of him. And he kind of laid the foundation through watching film and showing players his command of football. And then everyone's like, oh my gosh, Kyle's awesome. I respect Kyle. Defensive guys, like the way he installed that cover 3, or the way he talked about our cover 3, he knows what's up. He's going to get us right. And then it took him probably 1.5 to 2 years, but then he started doing the Sean McVay, kissing babies, shaking hands type of thing. And that totally changed. And so I think if there's one thing that is so important for a position coach, it's that they are, in my opinion, in my experience, even Matt LaFleur was like this. Matt LaFleur is probably more similar to Sean. Smart guy, extremely obsessed with football would be the other thing that's important. Obsessed with football, and he had that kind of charisma. And you see that up in Green Bay. So I think that, to me, is the main thing. Are they obsessed with football? Like, obsessed with football? Like, eat, sleep, drink football? Because that's what those guys are. They sleep at the facility. They talk about football. Kyle, I remember saying, like, the way I value you as a person is how you approach football. And that's how they all are. They're all super dialed in like that. So are they obsessed with football, and can they relate to the players? And I think the thing that those 4 examples show you is that everyone can relate in different ways, as long as you find that mode of connection that helps you convey your obsession with football at a high level.
What I think is interesting about those guys, having listened to the Playmaker series, and I just read a long Washington Post profile a couple weeks ago on McDaniel, is I don't know if they would agree with the last part to the extent they did when they coached you. I think all of them, as they've gotten a little bit older, have gained some perspective. McDaniel specifically talks about this in the Post piece, where he's like, I can't sleep at the facility anymore. Like I just
Right.
refuse to do that because I realized I wasn't as good of a coach because sleep is really important. And you hear him say in a team meeting during Hard Knocks or a team huddle after a practice on the short week, he's like, go sleep. Sleep is the most important thing you will do this week. Please go sleep. And so I do think it's interesting how the concept of a human touch evolves over the course of a coaching arc and a career. As people evolve as human beings. I know Sean, obviously Sean just became a dad for the first time. And I think that when he got super burnt out a couple of years ago and was ready to retire, like he and his wife, Veronica, looked at things and were like, maybe we need to find ways to take a step back a little bit.
Absolutely.
But I think that like there's still an obsession there and learning out how to channel it is something that happens as you get older and you progress in your career. There's another great saying that I love just generally. This is like great life advice more than it is like football coaching, but grind when you're young so you don't have to when you're old. Like you learn how to work smarter as you get going. But what doesn't get lost is the obsession. How it manifests itself is certainly super important. So if I am looking for a younger head coach, I want someone who has that grind, that last one in the facility, burn the midnight oil type of attitude, where I'm a little less concerned about that if they're a little bit older and they have a more advanced mastery of it. But what's important through all of that, the through lines are exactly what you said. Obsession with football, and do you have the human touch? And I think I've told this story before, but I was with McVay at one point, and there was a TV on, and he there's the NFL Top 100, and Jordan Reed pops up, and he's wherever he is on the list that given year, and he just immediately is like, I gotta text Reed, and it's like the middle of the offseason, and he's texting Jordan Reed, like just being like, man, you're the best, like you're so great, like I'm so lucky to coach you. Like he had a way of building guys up, and a way of connecting with them, and a way of making them feel seen and valued. And McDaniel talks about this a lot. If you read some of his stuff, if you watch the in-season Hard Knocks, like that way. And like Kyle, it sounds like he went about it differently, where he'd be like, I care about you if you can help me win football games.
But it's also
he
like
made you feel valued.
But to your point, though, it changed, it evolved. It started as this very austere, very serious thing, and then the personal touch developed. But I'm saying it started for him in his mastery and his relationship to football. And I think like that's, and the other thing, I think there's a third element here. Like those dudes are all brilliant guys. And I don't use that as like I'm not being hyperbolic there. Like they are brilliant guys. Like when you sit and talk to them about football, you're like, you are one of the top 10 smartest people on the planet on this subject matter. And they would kind of downplay that, obviously, but like it's obvious, the proof's in the pudding. So I would just say it's that obsession, but there needs to be a natural gift. And I think you just in the interview process, you'd be able to see that, right? There's a lot of smart guys, but are there those special guys? And all four of those guys that we talked about, even LaFleur, he gets forgotten a little bit in that mix, but he's one of those guys too. They have a grind, they have a process. It's a very clear vision. I think that's the other thing that is getting a little bit more technical as opposed to those kind of major points we alluded to, is they understand their vision very, very clearly for what it is. And so in that interview process, if the guy's like, oh yeah, we could do this or we could do this, I don't know if he's the right guy for me, because I want him to say like, this is where I think football is at now. This is where I think offensively we can take football. And I think they all had a good understanding of that. I think Sean in his first or second year in LA, when that offense really innovated and they did some really high level stuff, like he took football to the next level. Sean, LaFleur, I mean, you see McDaniel in Miami doing it all the time. LaFleur this year elevating Jordan Love. Like you just see how they understand how to maximize what they're doing, how they the hunger to bring in defenses that give them a hard time and work against them every single day. Like there's something really special technically in the drive, but also you can't forget about, like, obviously there's the brick and mortar stuff that you're building. Oh, we're building offense, we're talking football, the intellectual stuff, but there's also the interpersonal stuff, which they've all mastered. So I think those are things that I would really just kind of, if I'm hiring, those are things I'm looking for.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the other thing that I would say is you have to be able to teach it. And that's like, and I'm just trying to think of other things too, where like, I think of Brandon Staley in LA. I don't know why he's not working.
Right.
Like he is to defensive football what those other guys seem to be offensively, like the way he thinks about it. And he obviously went toe to toe with Sean for a couple of years in practice. Like he's one of the number one Vic Fangio disciples. Like he was the one who invented a lot of this like star coverage and was like, you want to know what? We got Jalen Ramsey. We're not going to play Jalen Ramsey at corner. We're not going to play him at nickel. We're going to play Jalen Ramsey at Jalen Ramsey. Like he figured out how to do that in an effective way to feature certain skill sets. And he seems to be very in touch on an interpersonal level with players and the way he talks about like humanity and that kind of stuff. And it just hasn't worked. And so I wonder like what I would want to know what the shortcoming is for Brandon Staley that McVay and Shanahan and McDaniel and LaFleur have, and like know what that thing is, and then make sure that the guy that I'm going after doesn't just check 3 of 4 boxes, if you will, but checks 4 of 4, you know?
Yeah, I think the thing that I would assume, and I haven't worked with Brandon Staley, obviously, and I don't know him, but having dealt with people that have worked with him, there's a competitiveness in Sean, in Kyle, in LaFleur, in McDaniels that is high level. Like, so they're going to compete in practice. They're going to while still maintaining, like, I think you can go 2 ways, like as a coach, right? You can kind of push your glasses up your nose and be overly technical and be overly nerdy, right? And I mean that with all due respect, because that's how I am as a person. I'm overly nerdy when it comes to football. And you can also kind of be overly sympathetic, but you got to remember that football is a violent, physical game, and I want violent, physical, competitive sons of guns, and I need to lead those people in a way that gets that out of them. I think that's where you see, like, when you watch San Francisco and you watch the defense and you watch the mindset, you watch the run game, like it's awesome, but that's a culture that they've bred there, and you can see them
take it out of the same tree that we're always in, like Dan Campbell in Detroit.
A perfect example. Love that example, right? There's a toughness, there's a mindset, there's a culture there that's fantastic. So I think that's something that I would kind of point to and say, like, you need to walk that line really carefully of saying, I'm really smart. I relate to players really well, but also I know how to push and get this kind of this barbarian out of them and get them to execute it in this way. So, and it's a fine balance, and there's a reason it's hard to find good young head coaches. But I think when you look at like D'Amico Ryans in Houston, and again, he's kind of from that Kyle tree, like, smart guy, relates to players well, but also no one would doubt that he's an absolute warrior. I played against him when he was in Philly. Like, he's an absolute warrior. And I'm sure he brings that mindset to his coaching philosophy. Saleh,
Sirianni seems to have that in Philly, speaking of.
Yeah, and yeah, that's exactly right. You see Sirianni getting after it and getting fired up. And I think when you look at Saleh, like, he's the nicest guy you've ever met, but he is a competitive son of a gun who knows how to motivate guys to play hard. And I think that's another thing that you see in some of these young kind of rising head coaches that's so important. It's the relationship to the players, but it's also, can you motivate that kind of primal aggression, I think, is also something I would look to.
Yeah, Dable, I think, has that in New York. Obviously, both New York coaches are dealing with pretty crappy rosters right now, so the records don't necessarily reflect it. But I would agree with you on Saleh. Like, he's a great example of it. You watch Hard Knocks, the preseason edition, and like ready to run through a wall for that guy.
Yeah.
I think that's a great call. Which leads us to the obvious follow-up before we take our final break here. Is there someone out there right now who you think fits that mold, who you're looking at? Like, what's the wish list? I know we're doing the same list as everybody else at this point to an extent. Like, we haven't, but you also know people around the league, so maybe you do have a slightly different list. And one of the names that's going to come up is a guy you know very well, and Frank Smith, who's the OC down in Miami, was your tight ends coach in some previous stops. I look at him. I look at Ben Johnson in Detroit, who I'll talk about more in a second. Anybody else that's on the list that you think fits that mold that we were just talking about?
I mean, those two guys for sure, because it's easy to kind of draw a corollary to offensive coaches. But for me, like, Dan Quinn has to be on the list. Like, he's a guy that I have the utmost respect for, having played for him in Atlanta, a guy that I think understands, this is something that I think is so important, understands the importance of offensive football. Like, you're a defensive coach, you got to make sure that offensive hire is out of this world. And it's something that he talked about with me after he left Atlanta, was like, just, hey, like, that's something I really got to prioritize. So knowing that that's on his agenda, I think Raheem Morris, a guy that was here, I was with him in Atlanta also. I know he's been in LA. I know I know he's one of the brightest football guys I've been around. He knows how to relate to players, and hopefully, from his first stint in Tampa, he's learned how to motivate guys and kind of get that competitive edge out of them. So I think those are two guys on the defensive side of the ball that I would point to. Obviously, Bobby Slowick, I know he's only been a year coordinator down in Houston, but what he's done down there is tremendous. Like, it is tremendous. And again, that's the Kyle Shanahan tree just continuing. But I think having an understanding of what Kyle does, what McDaniel does, what LaFleur does, what Sean does, what some of the best offenses in football do, and have that hunger, have that drive, and be able to relate to the younger players, I think is another thing that's so important. And you see that with Dan, the way that defense is playing, they relate to him, right? You see that
backwards hat DQ.
Yeah, and you see that with Raheem and the defenses that he coaches. So yeah. I think those guys are some names that I want to interview them, I want to talk to them, but having played with them and having watched the product that they've cultivated over the last 3, 4, 5 years in some cases, like I would feel very I would assume that they've evolved in their coaching perspectives and are ready for that opportunity.
Yeah, I think those are all really good names. So my guy's always been the guy from Detroit, Ben Johnson.
Yeah, Ben Johnson.
The OC.
Ben Johnson.
Yeah, the OC from the Detroit Lions, and Dan Campbell obviously is a huge part of that culture there. He's the tone setter. But you look at their first year when they had Anthony Lynn, and then what they did with Jared Goff years 2 and 3 now with Johnson as the OC, and he's able to create one of the league's best offenses without a super elite premier quarterback, and that is incredibly appealing. Like, is Sam Howell more likely to be Jared Goff than Patrick Mahomes? Hell yeah, he is. And so, can I create a league's best offense with him and Amon-Ra St. Brown level? Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown's incredible. But is he Jamar Chase? No. Does he produce like Jamar Chase? Damn near. For long stretches of seasons he does. Right. So I like that guy. And I was even more sold on this last week when we had Adam Amin on the radio show. And Adam, Fox Sports play-by-play, who obviously did the Commanders game with Mark Schlereth last week. Adam's had Detroit a couple times over the last couple years. And I asked him, I was like, hey, you get to do all these production meetings, and you get to talk to coaches, you get to talk to OCs, you get to talk to DCs. Is there anybody that really stands out to you as like, that guy's ready for a head coaching job? And he hasn't had everybody, so this is not to discount anyone that you just named that Adam might not have had an interaction with. I'd actually be curious to follow up with him and see what he thought of Frank Smith down in Miami because he hadn't had their production meetings with Miami yet, and that was his first time having Miami this year. But he goes, Ben Johnson is in a total class of his own. Like, his ability to command a room, his ability to do all the head coachy stuff, even though he's the OC, is right there. And it's one broadcaster's opinion in a production meeting, but like, we in this field have seen a lot of stuff. Adam's talked to a lot of people over the years. Like, Adam is done college football. He's done the NFL. He's done the NBA. Like, Adam's been around a lot of really good coaches in his career. And if he's like, that dude's got it, I tend to trust that evaluation. Obviously, Adam can't tell you what his X's and O's are. Can't tell you what he's like behind the scenes. But like, that it factor that you want in the head coach that Sean has, that Kyle has, that Matt has, that Zach Taylor has in Cincinnati, that Kevin has in Minnesota, that the best coaches in this league have. Very clearly, Ben Johnson has it. And so he has consistently been at the top of my list. And I also think philosophically, I like the way he thinks about the game. And I would say the same is true for Smith. I would assume for most of the other names you mentioned as well, like the prioritization of getting your best players the ball, being creative in how you do that, and a healthy run-pass balance that makes your quarterback's job easier on the offensive side. Like, that is the philosophy that I think is best in the modern NFL. That's what I would be looking for. I'm not Josh Harris, so we'll see.
No, but I think that's when you're looking for an offensive perspective and a cultural perspective, I think it doesn't get much better than that. Like you talk about a culture and turning around really quickly and having a clear vision. Like, he's been part of that. He's been part of that build. And I think that's another reason why Frank Smith is so appealing too, is they've been part of a culture shift, and it's all stemmed from an offensive philosophy. But like, you see the importance in McDaniel's case of, and again, I reference McDaniel's because Frank is under his tutelage, like Ben is under Dan. Like, they made the decision to go hire Vic Fangio this offseason. They made the decision to go get Tyreek Hill. They made the decision to bring in Jalen Ramsey. You look at Dan Campbell's drafts, you look at the perspective that they have as a physical team. Like, you've seen how to build a roster and then maximize the most important position of football in both instances, right? Both those guys are playing above their skis, and they're good football players, but they're also playing better because of the coaching, right? And the stuff that they've done there to kind of maximize those players. So I think he's the best candidate in football right now. And I think if I'm him, I'd probably go to San Diego, or no, to the Chargers, because of the Herbert connection. But again, like, this job I think is going to be very appealing, and maybe you put something out there, you get a good land there, and I think he'd be excellent. But I think all those guys I just mentioned, even Shane Day up in Seattle, the offensive coordinator there. Shane Waldron, excuse me. Yeah. I think is another interesting guy too. A guy that's been around.
Schematically, I know he's got it. I don't know if he's got the other stuff. And that's truly, I don't know.
Yeah. And I know Shane because he was here on this staff. Like, think about that, like how crazy this is, like this Washington tree. He was here, and he's an excellent guy. Now, can he be that leader? And the question is, I don't know. But a lot of, like I just said, like when I went through our like little Rolodex of coaches that we know, I didn't know for those guys either, but they grew and they developed. And to me, it's the football mind and the obsession that you see. But I do think those two guys we mentioned at the top are really high on the list. Obviously, the two defensive coaches we mentioned are pretty high on my list as well, because they've seen that thing we're trying to get here in Washington, and they understand how to do it. So I think that's what I would. But again, there's a lot of really bright dudes out there from bright organizations.
Last thing I'll say real quick, score some brownie points with Logan, but also I firmly believe this. I love a tight ends coach. A guy with a tight ends coach background, because he understands the pass game. He understands the run game. Like, tight end is the ultimate position in terms of understanding everything: pass pro, run blocking, route running, like how you interact with the quarterback. Tight ends coaches tend to do that as well as anyone. Like Sean, former tight ends coach. Yeah. McDaniel did some tight ends work in his day.
Well, he was, a run game. Like, think about his progression: receiver to run game coordinator. And I think like that point you're talking about, he has the pass protection and the run game stuff in conjunction with the passing game. And so I think you got to look for that in that guy, in that offensive
Ben Johnson line. And Frank Smith, tight ends coaches by trade. We answered a bunch more questions in that Tank Command mailbag, which you can check out now wherever you get your podcasts. Tank Command on a Football Friday, presented by your local Honda dealer here on the Team 980. Experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. See your local Honda dealer. We get back to the hoops. NBA in-season tournament. Mark Kessinger was there calling the action for ESPN Radio, and he joins us next live from Las Vegas. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We will pick this week's NFL action coming up in just a little bit. Normally we do that here at 5:30 on a Friday, but it is our pleasure instead to go out live to Las Vegas. We're happy to move the show around if we can get someone on site calling the games in the biggest sporting event of the weekend, and that's exactly what we got with our buddy Mark Kestisher, ESPN Radio play-by-play coverage of the NBA, including the in-season tournament. Kesty, what's up, man? Great to talk to you here in December.
Yeah, Craig, it's good to be on with you. I'm always the wrecker of show plans, so we can blame this one on the Lakers. They were a little late to their media obligations, so my apologies on behalf of them.
Yeah, we'll say on behalf of them, it's their fault. We can just say LeBron James wrecked our show today. We'll blame it on LeBron, whether it's his fault or not, because that sounds cooler for us.
Well, we had Austin Reeves as one of our interview subjects, and he got pulled off the golf course this morning. Apparently, he was playing the Wynn golf course, and it was time to go for media. So I asked him, I said, at least you weren't like 9 under at the turn. That's always hard. He said he was about 2 or 3 over. I'm like, that's easy to walk off the course when you're there.
I would 2 to 3 over to me is a hole, Mark.
I was going to say, I'm usually 2 or 3 over after 2, so I'm in the same experience as you.
Yeah. Speaking of experiences, what was it like there last night? Obviously, that first game is just tremendous. Second game turns into a blowout, but it's like an all-timer LeBron stretch there in that second quarter. And we're watching it on TV. I mean, the court looks like a video game on TV. But other than that, it looks amazing. The players seem to be super into it. What's it like to be there in person, calling the game?
It was a cool experience. I will say, having watched the quarterfinal knockouts at the home sites like everybody else on Monday and Tuesday, those atmospheres, from what I was told and what we saw, looked off the charts. It's a home game. It's got meaning in early December, late November, and it felt like playoff atmosphere, especially in Indiana, where, they've been frothing at the mouth, to get a team that can compete and get to the playoffs. I don't think you had that same fan atmosphere. It was a 2 p.m. start here. You had the Lakers in the night game, and a lot of Lakers fans, made their way up from Los Angeles. I think just the first time around, you were waiting to see, what's going to take a while to take hold. And it wasn't the players buying in because they bought in early. The games have been close, and that has helped. But I think, having it in a neutral site, as much as Las Vegas is a destination, it's tough on a Thursday, and they'll work on it. They'll tweak it. And I think the fans that did show up, even though it wasn't a complete sellout, were into the game, and certainly having a close game as it was in the first matchup with the Pacers and the Bucks, that brought a lot of excitement. And I know the Laker fans are still, probably haven't come in from last night out on the Strip with a 44-point win and on to the championship tomorrow.
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting, part of you've called the NCAA tournament before, and you understand this, and those of us that have covered NCAA tournaments know it's different. Unless you're the first game of the day, you don't get a full warm-up. You go out there, it's 20 minutes on the clock. You better have warmed up someone in the tunnel. I know they had a practice gym, but I was actually very surprised, Mark, how much time there was between the games.
Yes.
Is that one of the things you think they look at, making it more tournament feeling for this semifinal, if it's even at a neutral site again? I should just ask you open-ended. What are some of the tweaks that you're already hearing being around everybody out there in Vegas?
Yeah, it's funny because even league officials that we've run into, have kind of asked, all of us who follow the league, what have you thought? What could be better? We had Adam Silver on in between games, and some of our question was directed toward, what could you do differently? And the commissioner, stressed that he wants to get through the weekend first, that he wants to talk to his players and his coaches and, the folks that work in the league office and find out, how we can make it better. And I'm sure that will come up. I'm sure they wanted 2 gates. Excuse me. That's, probably the reason why you had to get the, first session out, bring the second session in. But it does leave that extra period of time, which also has a positive effect because then it allowed the Lakers and the Pelicans, to get a normal game day warm up to get out there and, get ready to play the game. So all things they'll take a look at, stuff that, was not quirky, but, maybe just didn't flow as much as you would expect. That's certainly one of them.
Yeah, and then I'm curious if they wind up doing the neutral site maybe just for the final next year. Do they do the semifinal again? We'll see, because you mentioned those home crowds have been crazy. You've called so many of LeBron's games over the course of his career. You know, you've been able to call NBA finals for much of the last decade, which obviously included many of his games with Cleveland, and then the bubble games in 2020. Like, you've seen so much greatness from him. Is last night like just up there in that stratosphere of great games, great stretches? He winds up only playing 23 minutes because he killed the Pelicans in the second quarter.
Yeah, it's funny because for a stretch of it, it was very short. You know, when you took a look after the game, he played less than 23 minutes, and it was just so efficient. It was cold-bloodedly efficient, and they didn't really need him, you know, to do anything once they got midway through the third quarter. So if you look at it just in its sample size of 22 minutes and 30 whatever seconds, you know, it ranks right up there with, you know, any performance in the history of the NBA. It was amazing. Like, LeBron's still setting records every day with stuff he does. I think it was the most efficient 30-point game in his career, which is pretty amazing. And when I asked Darvin Ham today, we just, you know, left Lakers media about it. You know, I'm speaking 30 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 22 minutes, trying to see what his reaction is. The first thing he said, you know what impressed me more? He took 3 charges.
Right.
You know, and all in the first half. And then I said, yeah, and one of them was against, you know, one of the biggest dudes in the league, in Zion Williamson. And he said, yeah, that was even better because he said, look, LeBron braced himself, and you take a charge from that big man that's going to get you fired up. You know, Darvin Ham's a different guy. I love him. I love talking to him. He loves physical basketball, so that was right up his alley. And it's just amazing to everybody that we talk to. And it's still a subject that at, you know, approaching age 39, and Rick Carlisle talked about that today. He's like, you know, I looked up on my phone, he's going to be 39 in a couple of weeks, and he still hasn't dropped off. You know, there's no apparent drop off in his play, and it still amazes everybody that he doesn't get tired. And the thing that Rick Carlisle mentioned as well is not only is he in great shape, but everything you throw at him, he's seen before, and he's always been good, even at his young age and in his prime, early prime, you know, at deciphering defenses and figuring out all the counters that you get to this point in your career, and he sees everything. And, it's outside of injury, he's really tough to stop. And clearly, winning this first NBA Cup means something to him, because you could see it last night. We've always said if he just puts his head down and wants to get to the rim, he's going to get to the rim. And it, confuses you why he doesn't do it all the time. And, he wants to get other guys involved too. So that's a function of it there. But last night he had a clear goal right from the first second of the game.
Yeah, I mean, his ability to kind of feel the game and manage energy and decide when it's time to go that route has always been, I think, underrated, because we all wonder, like, can he just do this all the time? Because he seems capable of doing it all the time.
Yeah.
And you see it in game sevens or do or die games. Like, he's one of the best scorers. It's like him, Jordan, and Durant are all over 30 points a game. And, every game in this tournament, obviously from this elimination stage on, has been do or die. And what's he done? Been right on those targets where he just does that and says, oh, well, screw the energy. If we don't lose this game, there's not another one. And he goes nuts. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have Tyrese Halliburton, who was a whopping, 3 years old when LeBron made his NBA debut. When did you realize, we've always known that Halliburton could be a good player since his rookie year, since he was in Sacramento. But when did you realize that he could be a top 15 NBA player that's going to challenge for, one of the top All-NBA guard spots this year?
I don't think I did, because we did Iowa State games when he was playing in the Big 12, and I was always impressed with him. I liked his size. His shot's really kind of funky,
right?
So it looked weird, and you're like, I don't know if this is going to work, in the NBA. And I remember after his senior year, Fran Fraschilla, I said it on the air last night. I said, I got to credit Fran Fraschilla, because he talked on every interview show he did leading up to the draft. He said, take Tyrese Halliburton. I guarantee you're not going to be disappointed. Not only is he talented, he is smart, and he is way ahead of his years as a leader. And it's all the stuff we're seeing now. He's 23 years old. And we had our interview session with him today, and he's, you could just see it. You can see another young guy who loves the game, who puts in the work, who's incredibly smart. And I didn't see it coming. The Sacramento Kings, had an embarrassment of riches, at point guard. They had De'Aaron Fox, and they took him because he was the best guy on the board at 12. It was surprising that he fell that far. And, there's 11 other teams that be like, why didn't we take Tyrese Halliburton? And it was a trade that worked for both teams. With Sabonis going to Sacramento, they made the great jump last year. And Halliburton coming to Indiana. And now he's in his second year here. He and Miles Turner have turned into a great duo. And I hope it's not just early season success. It feels like it's something that can, make this a playoff team at the end of the year, but they're still young. And side note, Halliburton in the beginning of our interview told us, and I hadn't read it anywhere, but maybe it's common knowledge. He grew up the biggest LeBron James fan in Wisconsin.
Oh.
He goes, I was a Cavs fan, I was a Heat fan, I was a Cavs fan, and then I was a Lakers fan until I was drafted. So to play LeBron James tomorrow, and he's played him before, and he's had conversations with him, but this means a lot to him because LeBron James is his guy. He has a fat head on the wall. That's how he told me he stamped it. That was his guy.
That is a great story. And, we were looking it up earlier because we were obviously talking about it. And I was like, when was Halliburton born? He's a leap baby, which is fun. He gets a real birthday this year coming up when he turns 24.
I didn't know that. I would have loved to have that in the interview. I'm fascinated by leap babies.
There you go. So he's a February 29th baby, February 29th, 2000. And
so how old is he in birthday years?
God.
6?
Mark.
5?
Mark, we went to the same school. We have the same degree. We don't do
math.
We don't do math. Why did you just do that to me?
Actually, PJ Carlesimo took a shot at our school because I was trying to figure out the Lakers' advantage over New Orleans. And I'm like, they're up 41. And PJ goes, wow, using that Syracuse education. I'm like, well, you better check me because I'm not sure if it's right.
Yeah.
It was right. So count one for the good guys.
Excellent. Yeah, no, Anthony, our producer, is also a Syracuse alum. Anthony, and what's our number one rule of the show?
No math involved. Nobody told me there would be math.
No, that's actually the second rule of the show. The first rule is don't cuss. The second rule is there's no math on the show.
Well, let's see. We can do this. Hold on. We can carry the 1.
Yeah.
Move the 5, and we are 24 years in, and you don't count the first one, so that's 24. Divided by 4, and I'm lost. So he's 6 years old.
So this would be the 5th time he gets a true birthday, I think, is if we don't count the first one.
5th?
I think.
Okay, then he's going to be
so
5.
It's 2000. Now I'm actually Mark. Now you've pushed the button. Now I'm going to do this. I'm going to count on my fingers.
He will be 6 years old, guys.
Because but 24 divided by 4 is 6. That part I got.
Yeah.
But so he celebrated 2004, 2008, 12.
You know what? We are
16,
dumbing down your audience by the moment, and I apologize.
6. I don't apologize. That is Mark Ketchesher with us here on the Hoffman Show. A treat as always, Mark. Have so much fun calling the final tomorrow night, and we will definitely catch up with you throughout the rest of the season.
I'm giving that leap age tomorrow. Book it.
Yes,
Good to talk with you,
excellent.
Craig.
All right, that is Mark Ketchesher, everybody, here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and, of course, streaming live on YouTube. Anthony, that was thoroughly embarrassing for us.
Yeah, a little bit.
Actually, I think you looked the best there. You're like, guys, he's 6. It's fine.
I just did the math real quick,
Yeah, 24 divided.
That's basic math. 24 divided by 4.
Yeah, no, that part I got. But then he threw me off with the you don't count the first one bit.
Yeah, but you wouldn't count that in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just he's 6.
I'm proud of you guys. Well, I'm proud of us.
Yeah, proud of us. I'm proud of you too, because for the amount of times that you've embarrassed Georgetown Prep on this show, with a variety of English and or history
Greek mythology,
you made it up with math.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I have no idea what we're doing next. Here's what we have through the rest of the show, in some sort of order. Dave Johnson's going to talk about Wizards, Nets, and also whatever else we want to talk about because it's Dave. And Lord, speaking of, Lord knows where it goes. Anthony, the face you're making, do we need to confirm with Dave? Is that the face you just made?
No, we got Dave.
Oh, okay. What face did you just make?
Because we have a lot of things to do.
We do. We have our NFL tiers.
Yep. We got our picks.
And then we got our picks. Should we start on picks next? Finish them at 6? And then, or should we start on tiers next? Do picks at 6:30?
I think we should fly through tiers.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do tiers next.
All right, we're going to get at least one tier solidly out of the way very quickly next. It's Hoffman Show on the Team 980. We got to go to break. All right, we're on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I don't know, Anthony, if we'll have time to even get through a tier. We're just gonna blitz through the tiers coming up at 6 o'clock before we have Dave on, and then we'll do our picks at 6:30 also quickly. You're gonna have to. We were talking on the break though. Linnell wanted to do the NFL tiers yesterday, and he had how many tiers?
Linnell had 8 tiers.
That's too many tiers. Why is he making a wedding cake?
I told him he had way too many tiers.
How many teams? He had as many tiers as the NFL has divisions. Are these in the rundown somewhere? His tiers from yesterday?
Yeah, I'm a copy and paste them up.
Oh, here we go. I know. I'm scrolling.
Oh, you see them?
Yeah.
It starts off with making reservations for Vegas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You know who made his reservations for Vegas this week?
Oh, he left one out. Who? Oh, you.
Your boy. We're taking the show to Super Bowl Radio Row, baby.
That's gonna be so much fun, man. I'm gonna be here. Sad but happy at the same time.
I mean, if you can find a spot out there.
Oh, that's easy work.
I mean,
it's more so just not being able to work from here.
Well, we could have someone hit the buttons. I do need a producer out there.
Uh-oh.
Well, let's talk about that off air.
I'm loving it. Got you.
Because I'm sure, Z's going to go out there, right?
Yes, he's going out there for the Pro Bowl. Well, if he gets into the Pro Bowl. But
he's making the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Leads the NFL in tackles. He's making the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
Better make the Pro Bowl. Anyway, we'll discuss. Consistently inconsistent. If we only had a good enough backup QB, making lemonade out of lemons. These are
the Texans, the Broncos. He has some. I don't know. I understood the tiers, but our tiers and the
point
purpose of our
isn't
tiers
to
are
create a headline for every team. The point is to rank the teams together.
Yeah.
It's about bringing teams together, not separating them apart.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm sorry that everyone had to sit through that. / you're welcome for having. I had no control over it.
It was some good banter though.
I'm sure it was very interesting. Linnell is creative. I will give him that.
Yeah.
But our tiers are prime contenders, puncher's chance, interesting but not quite good enough, and no chance. And we will put the entire NFL, 32 teams, in those 4 tiers in 12 minutes or less next. show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. All right, Dave Johnson is going to join us in about 15 minutes, which means, Anthony, on this Friday, we have 12 minutes to pick our NFL tiers. So, with that, let's get right into it. Prime contenders. This means a team that we would look up and not be surprised to see in the Super Bowl. The Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
Shekaruski. San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
Chiefs.
Yep.
I think they're still there. Eagles. Still there. Not discouraged by the loss to San Fran.
Nope.
Baltimore Ravens.
Yep.
Dallas Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? Yes.
I think they stay. However, if they lose to Philadelphia this weekend, they're out.
Oh, you're that.
You have
quick
to beat someone good eventually.
Okay. So if the Dolphins lose, no matter who they play, they're out too because they haven't beaten anybody all season either.
The Dolphins, I mean, I don't know what their schedule is. I don't know if they have another opportunity to beat someone good. Because
So they shouldn't lose at all then.
I mean,
They play the Titans this weekend. That would be a blowout. They play the Jets. Oh, they play the Cowboys December 24th. Let's see how that goes.
I think that could be a prime contenders battle. Although if they play each other close, they could both stay in.
Yeah.
Cowboys, they belong. All right, puncher's chance. Lions, still there?
Yes.
Okay. Bills, still there.
Yes. For another week.
Jags, still there?
Trevor's out. High ankle sprain. I think we should move him down.
But I don't think that affects their postseason. The Monday loss was bad.
Okay.
Like the Bengals played out over their skis. That was crazy. Lawrence is hurt. If he's not hurt, do they make it to do they win that game? Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm okay leaving the Jags here for now. Texans.
Yes.
I think they belong in this, which is crazy, but they do. And the Steelers, we finally moved up to here against my better judgment, are going back down.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they're interesting, but they're definitely not good enough. That's the next category. Okay, which brings us to interesting but not quite good enough. We're actually rolling maybe too fast through these. Is there anybody that's going to go up in this? I think that could be interesting as well. The Falcons.
No, they stay where they are.
Okay, here's a team that I still think is pretty fascinating. The Seattle Seahawks. If you look at like the neighborhood, right? And this is going to be tough because they're coming off a loss. But they played Dallas really tough.
Mm-hmm.
And their schedule's not getting any easier. Unfortunately for them, they're at San Francisco, then they've got Philadelphia before they finish easier with the Titans, the Steelers, and the Cardinals. But realistically, when you think of the Seahawks, do they belong in the same group as the Lions, Bills, Jags, and Texans?
No.
Or the Falcons, Saints, Bucks, Packers, that group?
They belong where they are just because, again, battling the Cowboys, the 49ers, like, yes, you were competitive, but it comes down to winning at the day. And you got to be able to win some of those games. Also, you had a bad loss to the Rams. And we can really revisit the Rams, but I think the Rams are a solid team as well, and they had a loss to them as well. So I think it comes down to winning, and they aren't doing enough to, get those wins that they necessarily need.
You're probably right. They've lost 4 of 5,
Mm-hmm.
so it's tough to be like, hey, they actually belong in a different class, and they're probably going to lose their next 2.
Yep.
But, man, that's so schedule induced.
I mean, if they had our schedule, they definitely be in a puncher's chance, just record-wise.
Well, that's the thing is, like, would you be surprised if they won a playoff game?
I would still be surprised.
Okay, then I guess we leave them.
Okay.
I'm going to say if they can compete, and especially if they win one of the next 2.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat the 49ers. They obviously go up. They beat the Eagles. I think they go up.
Yeah.
As long as they don't get blown out in the other game. All right. Tampa.
Stand pat.
Okay. New Orleans.
Stay where they are as well.
The Chargers.
Stay where they are.
I was almost tempted to move them down 6-0
Ooh,
against the Patriots.
The Patriots went out there and got the dub against the Steelers, though.
Yeah, I mean, Thursday Night Football is the worst.
Yeah, it's a little wacky bet.
The Chargers, we just said stay pat. Indianapolis.
I'm loving what they doing. Who they got this week?
Great question.
Who do they have? Indy, Colts. Okay, they play the Bengals. Jake Browning. I mean,
the Colts have won 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row.
Yeah, the defense is rolling. They've had 5 sacks or more in 3 straight games. The defense is definitely keeping them alive, and Gardner's doing just enough. Their playmakers are stepping up. I think if they go out here and beat the Bengals, I think the winner of this game deserves to move up.
I think that's
the Colts and the Bengals.
Well, this is the thing that I think is like kind of where we are in the season, though. Mm-hmm. The top tiers should get smaller, and really the bottom tiers
to fill up.
They start to fill up. Like that puncher's chance is the definition is like could you see them messing around and making the AFC title game or the NFC title game.
Okay.
I don't know if Indy's that good.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, I think very quickly as some more teams get eliminated from the playoffs, like some of these teams that are right now in this category, like this category is overcrowded. Some teams need to get put down. The problem is they keep winning. They're still not good enough to actually compete, but no one's separated themselves yet. So with that said, Minnesota, who was on their way to like, I don't know, do they mess around and do something funky? And then just absolutely implodes on themselves. We have no idea who their quarterback is going to be as of now, right?
No, they said Josh Dobbs.
Oh, they did announce Dobbs today?
Yep.
Okay. So they've got the Raiders this weekend. If they go out and they win on the road at Vegas, and then they go on the road and beat on a Saturday, by the way, beat the Bengals. By the way, the last time the Vikings played on Saturday was that crazy comeback last year.
Ooh.
So if they can go beat the Bengals, and then they finish, here's what's crazy for them. They finished 3 straight division games, Lions, Packers, Lions.
I mean, at least they got Justin Jefferson back for those Lions games. Those are going to be doozies.
And if their defense keeps playing well and Dobbs cannot do what he did last time out, like I think they could wind up in puncher's chance. But right now they have to stay where they are.
Okay.
Bengals. I can't, with Jake Browning, put them back up in puncher's chance. I know
Did you watch Jake Browning against the Jaguars?
I know, but it was one game.
Yeah, I mean.
Last time I let you convince me to move someone up, we wound up with the Steelers in that category, and I want to put them in no chance automatically because they lost to the freaking Patriots.
I'm not saying we move the Bengals up. All right, I think the Colts, the Bengals are maybe 2 weeks wait and see what they do before they graduate kind of thing.
Okay. The Browns, they stay where they are.
Yeah.
The Broncos.
They stay where they are.
Yeah.
They showed us who they were last week.
Yeah, I don't think they're quite good enough. The Rams.
Interesting, because they're 6-6, right?
I believe that is correct.
Yep,
and their record with Stafford is, like, right there.
Yeah. And they're getting healthy. I think we keep them here. I think we move them up. And you think the Rams can compete with the 49ers?
It's not about competing with the 49ers. It's about competing with the Lions, the Bills, the Jags, the Texans. That's the neighborhood they belong in. Like, are the Rams more similar to the Jags or to the Broncos?
But what is their bread and butter? Like, what do they mainly rely on? Their offense, I guess?
I mean, I think they've shown they can win multiple ways. They've had some low-scoring games where they've won. They've had some high-scoring games where they've won.
Okay.
They went on that slide in the middle of the season, but Stafford was out. Since he's been back, they beat the Seahawks in a slog. They bamboozled the Cardinals, and they put up 36 on the Browns last week.
Okay.
Now, they're at Baltimore this weekend, so this could feel very silly by the end of it. We could move them right back down if they prove they're not even remotely there. But even if they lose, but they're right there with the Ravens, I think that it proves they're in the right category. If the Ravens are in the prime contenders category and the Rams go toe-to-toe with them, then the Rams belong in puncher's chance. So on the road at Baltimore? No.
Should we wait and see?
No.
All right, if you're ready to move them up, if they go out here and get destroyed.
Anthony, I don't know if you're in the rundown right now where this list lives in its physical form, but I've already moved them up. I'm done. I'm making a final ruling. Rams, bam, puncher's chance. They're there.
Are you on a different spreadsheet than me?
Uh,
I think you are.
yeah, definitely am.
Oh, okay. Because I was confused a little
I'm
bit.
definitely on the Thursday one.
Oh, that's why.
I'm on yesterday. I got so distracted by Linnell's nonsense that I stayed there. So Rams, bam. We didn't move anybody else, did we?
We moved the Steelers down.
But you did that. You were driving. Good job. All right. So then Carolina, Arizona, Giants, New England, Tennessee, Vegas, Jets, Commanders. All no chance, no changes.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah. It's really hard. Once you've been put in the basement, it's hard to get out.
Yeah.
I did chuckle earlier today. The Jets are like imploding, and the Giants are putting out social media videos of Tommy DeVito ranking Italian food.
Yeah.
Got to know how to handle a bad season.
Gotta love New York.
And I think the Giants are doing better than the Jets. Same old Jets, unfortunately. All right, that's the NFL tiers. We did it in 12 minutes on the dot. When we get back, Dave Johnson joins us from Brooklyn, talking Nets and Wizards. Can they put a game together? And what was it like to call yet another Joel Embiid masterpiece the other night? Probably not very fun. When it's like, oh, cool, I got to call a 50-point game. That was a great career moment. Oh, he does it every time that we play him? Not as fun. We'll talk to Dave next, and then we will pick the games for the weekend coming up at 6:30. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And it is a Wizards game day here on the Team 980 tonight. Wizards and Nets, 7:30 is your tip time in Brooklyn. That means a 7:15 pregame and a right now visit from Dave Johnson.
Time to get the radio party started.
Blocked by Bilal Coulibaly. Oh boy, did he stuff him. Left wing pool, it's there. Oh, that's a pool party. Near the basket, slam right in. And there, they're stealing the slam. Intercepted by Kispert. Kispert now, foul line. Oh, slam. Ooh, that'll jar your preserves.
It's time for Dave Johnson on a Wizards game day.
Kuzma for three. Oh, it's there. It's there. Big shot.
On the Hoffman Show.
Wizards will be trying to snap a 3-game losing streak. They lost to the Magic twice. First time much closer than the second. And actually, Dave, back-to-back 2-point losses, including yet another monster game by Joel Embiid at Capital One Arena on Wednesday against the 76ers. Does it feel like, excuse me, wow, I haven't done a show in a couple of days, Dave, and we haven't done a lot of full shows recently. I'm used to being done because the tip-off time's earlier. Apparently, I'm just going to have to struggle on through the rest of the show here. Anyway, the point is, does it feel like things are starting to click and get closer, even if it's just a smaller margin of losing versus actual victories yet?
Yeah, look, I mean, as we talk about this, so you go through, you divide up the season into different segments, and obviously we just have completed 20 games and 3-17, and as our friend Steve Spurrier once said about 5-11 or whatever it was, not good.
Not very good.
Right. But the point being, we never, whether it's 3-17, would you feel better if it was 7-10? I mean, what you have to feel good about is, look, this has been a tough schedule. You have to feel good about, could have won that game against the Philadelphia Sixers or against Orlando. I mean, there's a Magic team that had at one point a 9-game winning streak. So, it's the Wizards. When they play the Detroits, the Charlottes, they're beating them. So what I'm saying is, you have to look inside the games and say, oh, wait a minute. All right, Jordan Poole was 23 points, 10 of 16. Bilal Coulibaly is continuing to just, make notice around the league. People are coming up and saying, hey, I think you got something in Bilal Coulibaly. So, we're 1 month in, basically, to whatever we're calling this, a rebuild, reboot process, etc. So let's see. Maybe they'll go 8-12 over the next 20 games. I mean, at some point, no, you don't want to be 3-79. You need to taste victory. We have a great interview coming up with Kyle Kuzma at halftime, and he talks about just that, the vibe around the team. Now, it's not as good as maybe the Craig Hoffman preseason interview with Kyle Kuzma, which I recommended to people on YouTube. But I think what's important for fans to know is that Kyle Kuzma wanted to be here, and he wants to be a part of turning this around. And did they think they were going to be 3-17? No, I think they know in their hearts, and we can point to probably. I think this team could easily be 7-13 as opposed to 3-17. But look, we're not going to remember this November, let's say 3 Novembers from now. And you hope 3 Novembers from now, let's say, that we're in a situation like Orlando where I just came from. They're plumb giddy down there. And they went through 21 and 22 win seasons. And now all these young players like a Franz Wagner and, right on down the line are starting to hit. And that's the thing we've talked about over and over. You want to hit with your draft picks, and Bilal Coulibaly certainly is showing, all right, he's a hit. Now, what's the next level for Denny Opie? He's starting to show it, and he's been arguably the most consistent player all season. So that's where we are right now. It's not about can we end I'm not even counting whether it's a 3-game losing streak or whatever it is. That's for when you're a playoff contending team. And the Wizards are not. That's never what this season was going to be about.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think with Jordan Poole, it's been interesting to watch the last couple of games because it wasn't an up and down start to the season. It was just a down start to the season. It was not good, but he has started to be more up and down and starting to find it in certain games. shooting more, which I think is also good. One thing that I always look at for him is not just his shot percentage, but like how many shots is he actually taking? 3 of the last 5 games, he's taken over 20 shots, which is how this team is kind of designed, and shows a level of aggression from him. He's all starting to hit some threes with a little bit more regularity. What have you seen how his game is changing to ultimately produce those numbers from a shot selection, from an aggression, from a usage standpoint with your vantage point every night from the broadcast booth?
Well, and that's a great question. I think it speaks to, this is a team game. So then you've got to get comfortable playing with your team. And we've talked about things in broad generalities about he's getting used to a new role and et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't matter what your role is. You're still a month into playing with a new team. What I'm seeing is just a more of a comfort level in terms of, when he's picking his spots, his drives to the basket, getting to the free throw line. And the three-pointer is, if he's making drives to the basket, if the Wizards are driving to the basket, that's going to open up three-point opportunities for him. So, it's the world we live in where we could talk about, we're thinking long term, but we all live in a short term world. I mean, think about it. What was the last time? I know you're talking to me, but you might be staring at your cell phone right now. If people are listening to me and driving, they might not driving. You shouldn't be staring at your cell phone if you're.
Yes,
driving.
please don't. We do not endorse that.
No, but we're all guilty of it. We talk about long term, and then we're all, oh wow, we got to look at this tweet or look at this news story or et cetera, et cetera. So, it's even like at the start of this season. No, it wasn't good for Jordan Poole, but right away, you were sharing stories about, after 10 games, he's not in the Wizards' plans. Well, think about that. You don't make a decision on anything on 10 games. Do you decide if you're going to marry the person you're dating after 10 dates? I mean, maybe some do, but it's part of, we can talk about long term, but we still view things like, all right, what's going on now? And that was the point of your question to start this conversation. What is going on now is, nobody's, giddy and jumping around and saying, wow, we're 3-17. But the only way you get better the next 20 games or the next 10 games, whatever, is you show up at the gym the next day and you see things like we're seeing. Like, here's another thing. Daniel Gafford being more consistent. And he's up against, when I say consistent, his energy, his effort, the little things he's doing. And he's up against Joel Embiid the other night. And he doesn't foul out until 2 minutes left in the game. Now, it'd be great if you didn't foul out, but think about it. You're going up against Joel Embiid, MVP, and you last until the fourth quarter. So, that game was better this time and more competitive against the Sixers than last time when we were in Philadelphia, when, by the way, Gafford had 5 blocks, and we were all going crazy in the first quarter, but ended up losing by 20. Instead, this was a game right down to the wire, and if you go quarter by quarter, it was tight. In fact, the Sixers' biggest lead the entire night was just 7 points. The Wizards actually had the biggest lead of 10. It just they couldn't build on that against the Sixers. So, these are not things that we're going to hold a parade on Connecticut Avenue over, but this is the kind of stuff you're looking for, and that we said at the start of the season when we're having these conversations in January. What's going on? Is it better than it was in November? And you hope the answer is yes.
Yeah, you hope you see that development. Something that, by the way, the opponent tonight has done very well. They've got guys like Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson. Obviously, Johnson came over in the trade with the Suns. Mikal Bridges as well. Some younger players who they've done a really good job. Nick Claxton developing over the years. That will be big parts of whenever they take their next step in their growth process there in Brooklyn, a couple steps ahead of where the Wizards are right now. Dave Johnson joins us on every single Wizards game day. He and Glenn on the call tonight, 7:15. 7:30 is the tip time. 7:15, the pregame show. Dave, always good to chat, my friend. Have a great call tonight. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next week. And I think we'll see you next week, too. I think we're going to be out at Capital One Arena next Friday.
Well, good. Yeah, there's a rule where we finally get to play a home game. That's the other part of the equation.
Yeah!
On the road so much, but we finally get to come home. But looking forward to that. And again, I appreciate everybody staying connected with us.
Absolutely. All right, Dave Johnson with us here on the Hoffman Show, getting the radio party started on a Friday. When we get back, we got to pick every single NFL game, and we got to do it quickly. Anthony and I go around the NFL next here on the Team 980. Final half hour here on a Football Friday on the Team 980, driven by your local Honda dealer. Experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. See your local Honda dealer. Normally 5:30 on Fridays we go around the NFL, but our guy Mark Kestisher needed to join us then, thanks to the Lakers. LeBron James just ruining our show today. Actually, we found out, Anthony, it was Austin Reeves. They had to pull him off the golf course.
Yep.
Come on, AR-15. What are we doing?
I am, man.
Messing up the Hoffman Show in Washington, D.C. because you're playing golf in Las Vegas. He doesn't know, nor would he care. But because of that, we are here now, having not yet picked each and every NFL game. So, Anthony, I say it is time for us to go around the NFL. Yes.
Yep, you hear it.
Yes, indeed. Good thing we didn't pick the game last night because we probably would have gotten that wrong. Patriots hold on to beat the Steelers 21-18 in a game I didn't watch 1 second of and didn't realize was happening until this morning when I saw the final score.
Oh, I watched it.
Actually, no, that's not true. I saw a meme last night of all the people talking about the under. 70% of bets were on the under in this game, even though it was one of the lowest unders in NFL history. And that got passed in the first half.
Yep. Bailey Zappi looked good in the first half.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to play quarterback when you prepare, even on a short week, or you know you're going to be the starter versus having to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe they should have done that earlier in the year. Not that he's awesome, but he's better than Mac Jones. Because you want to know who's not better than Mac Jones? Or know who's better than Mac Jones? Most people that have jobs in the NFL playing quarterback. All right, NFC South, key matchup for the division. Falcons and Buccaneers. Like, winner doesn't automatically win the division. Although if the Falcons can win, they have a nice little cushion. Falcons, 2.5-point favorites at home against Tampa, Anthony. Who you got?
I think I want to lean Tampa. Mike Evans has been cooking as of late. They still need to get healthy defensively. They had a lot of people out last week. Levante David, Jamel Dean. I don't know if they'll, have their full army. But for
I'm
some
with
reason,
you, man. I just got a feeling. I don't trust Atlanta.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Bucks. I
think I am too. I don't know. But Atlanta also has been able to grind out some games. They're 6-6. Bucks 5-7. We're both going Tampa on that one. Also a weird TV weekend. You got a bunch of games in because the Fox and CBS don't do the NFC AFC thing anymore. That game's a CBS game on Sunday, or it's a red zone game for all of us, because let's be honest, that's what we're all watching this weekend with no Commanders on the schedule. Lions and Bears, 1 o'clock on Fox from Chicago. Detroit, 3-point favorites on the road. Taking 2 road teams? Yeah, we are. Why? Because the Bears are not very good. Please, let's go Lions, because 1, I like the Lions, and 2, we need that Bears pick to be as high as possible. The Commanders are in a weird spot, though. Because would you rather finish ahead of Chicago so you have the higher pick in the first round, or do you want to try to drop it down? Like, you don't want them to be too good or too bad. Too good. Yeah, too good. Because you have their second round pick. You need to finish like 1 spot ahead of the Bears.
Yeah.
So we need the Bears to win a game and the Commanders to lose out.
I don't think it's going to be this game, though.
I don't either. I think it'll be Detroit. All right, Colts and Bengals. Bengals coming off that tremendous Monday night win with Jake Browning playing the game of his life. Can he do it again? He's favored by 2.5 at home over the Colts, who have won 4 straight games.
I like what Zach Taylor's doing for Jake Browning, helping him out. But I think the Colts are going to go out here and get after him. They've had at least 5 sacks in 3 straight games. I think that continues this time against the Bengals. And I think, the Colts are going to pull it out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that defensive line and the pressure they're getting against Bengals offensive line that has struggled to protect Joe Burrow and struggled to protect Browning is likely the outcome here. Jags and Browns. This one, Joe Flacco or Dorian Thompson-Robinson versus whoever the hell is the backup for the Jags.
Beathard. C.J. Beathard.
Oh, C.J. Beathard.
Yeah.
Yikes,
he hurt his
man.
hand a little bit. This one is ugly, man.
I mean,
Mark Cooper's
Lawrence
not
is
playing.
technically questionable.
I don't think Lawrence is playing. But I think the
I'm going Jacksonville. The Browns have not played well as of late.
They haven't. The defense hasn't played well either.
Like I think there's been a regression.
I think I'm gonna go with the Jags as well. I think I'm gonna go with the Jags.
Our guts are just together today, Anthony. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess it depends based on past history.
I'm gonna go Browns. You go Jags.
You're really?
It's a weird NFL.
Okay. All right. Whatever. Saints hosting the lowly Carolina Panthers, who are 1-11 and many disasters. This would complete an 0-8 road schedule, although they probably have a 9th road game eventually. The 0-8 on the road, Anthony, if they lose this. Saints just 2-3 at the Superdome. They used to never lose there because they used to be a lot better. I'll take New Orleans, though.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the Saints as well. You Panthers, just continue to tank, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
continue to tank.
Get the highest pick in the second third,
round.
Fourth, whatever rounds, because you were big dum-dums and traded your pick to the Bears. Yep. Texans and Jets. Houston, 3.5-point favorites on the road. Zach Wilson back in the starting lineup for New York. Can he put together an offensive performance to outduel C.J. Stroud?
I think this is going to be an interesting game, Craig.
It does have a little bit of weird vibes.
What is there a point? I mean, is there a line?
Of course there's a line. Houston -3.5. So Houston's favored.
Is that a stinky fish?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, it's 3.5. They're on the road. So it's telling you that they're about 6.5 points better at a neutral site.
Yeah. So I think the Texans are going to squeeze this one out. Barely, though. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. The Jets' defense is still good, but can't do anything if your offense isn't doing anything. So low-scoring, Texans win.
I agree. I think, well, I don't even know if it's going to be low scoring. I think the Texans have what it takes offensively. Obviously, no Tank Dell for the rest of the season. That hurts. But they do still have Noah Brown and a bunch of other dudes because C.J. Stroud is awesome. Rams and Ravens up on 95 in Baltimore. Baltimore is 7.5-point favorites in this game over L.A. I'm going to pick him, but I like the Rams plus the points, and I also like the over in this game. Only 39.5. Like, if it's a 21-20 game, that's 41. I think this could be like a 28-24 kind of game with plenty of points. I know the Ravens' defense is solid, but the Rams have been putting up points as of late. Ravens' offense knows how to score. I like the Ravens to win a shootout at home.
A shootout. Craig is calling for a shootout. Ooh.
Watch it be like 19-16.
I think that Ravens defense is going to show up. I don't have the Rams going out there and putting up a ton of points. They just play they've been so disciplined this season. I think I'm going to go with the Ravens.
Okay. I mean, I am too. I am too. Just to be clear, we pick these games not against the spread. Pick them straight up. I'm taking the Ravens. Vikings and Raiders. Minnesota, 3-point favorite. A lot of road favorites this weekend. Vikings, 3-point road favorites. They are going with Joshua Dobbs against Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders. I'll take Minnesota on the road. Do I think Josh Dobbs is awesome, despite how everyone gets super geeked up whenever he has a good game because they love his story? No. Is he as bad as he was a couple weeks ago? Also, no. Also, JJ's back. I'll take Minnesota.
You're taking Minnesota. I, too, am taking Minnesota. Are we just going to agree on every game?
Not everyone, because you zigged on one of them when I zagged. I don't even remember what game it is anymore.
The Jags and Browns.
Yeah, that one. Oh, there's a lot of bad games. There's also some very good ones, including this one potentially. The 4 o'clock window is pretty good. Obviously, Sunday Nighter is incredible this week. Eagles, Cowboys, talk about that in a moment. Seahawks and 49ers could be good. Divisional game, often closer. Seattle's played San Francisco tough over the years, but Niners are rolling right now. They're 13-point favorites. That feels like a lot, but also the way they're playing also doesn't feel like enough. I'll take San Francisco at home, by the way, where they have also been awesome. They're 4-1 on the year.
Yeah, they're going to keep rolling. I got the 49ers in this one. Geno is going to be under duress all game. It might get ugly, Craig. I like this number. I will bet the over.
Wow. Niners to cover or over on the 46.5?
Niners to cover.
Yeah. 46.5 is a big number. Big total. Big total at Arrowhead, too. Bills and Chiefs, 48.5 the total here. Chiefs favored by 1.
Uh-oh.
1.
Where you going to go, Craig?
At home. I'm making you pick first on this one. I know who I'm picking. I'm not going to flip-flop.
Okay. I think I'm going to go with the Bills. This is a high-stakes game for those guys.
It is.
Where they currently sit, 7-5?
They're 6-6.
Oh, 6-6. Upping the stakes even more. I think this is a playoff kind of game for the Bills. So I think they're going to come out there guns a-blazing. And I think they built on something offensively the last couple of weeks. I know they lost to the Eagles in OT, but, with some growth there. So I think I'm going to go with the Bills to pull this one off.
It does feel that way, but I'm going to go Kansas City. Okay. They're coming off a bad loss. They find ways to win. I think they were onto something a couple weeks ago, and then they just couldn't keep it up last weekend.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be an interesting game, though. I definitely feel like the Bills could go in Arrowhead and pull it out. They've done that in the regular season before. It's just every time they play in the playoffs, Mahomes finds a way. But this is a big game for Kansas City. I mean, in some ways, to me, this is do you stay in prime contenders, or are you a puncher's chance team? If they can't get this offense to play a little bit more consistently, or the defense can't refine its form. Very curious to see how the Chiefs play Sunday afternoon, 4:25 on CBS. Also 425 on CBS, a.k.a. check your local listings for details. I'm guessing most of America's getting Bills Chiefs. Broncos and Chargers. Chargers, the best 5-7 team talent-wise you'll ever see, even though they're horrendously painful to watch in terms of their underachieving nature. The Broncos looked to be terrible, suddenly are 6-6. Games in LA, Chargers favored by 2.5.
I don't like this. These divisional games, they're so hard to choose. I think I'm going to just go with the Chargers. I have no rhyme or reason. It's too tough to like really call.
I don't believe the Broncos are actually good. They caught a hell of a hot streak.
Okay.
And I think that's great for them.
Texas put it out. Okay.
I think, and you know, it's not like that game was a blowout. I still have trust issues with the Broncos. Maybe that's probably personal bias because we saw them earlier in the season. And it's just like, this team stinks. And the Chargers just won 6-0 against the Patriots. So naturally, I'm going to pick the Chargers because it's a wacky league, and that feels like the wacky bit. That's our show. You know, Sheehan has the smell test. We're just going to have the wacky bit theory.
I'm picking the Broncos.
You already picked the Chargers.
For no rhyme or reason.
Okay, he's switching. He's switching just because.
I got to come back, Craig. I'm down.
Right. He's trying the strategy bit, which is when he digs himself into a gigantic hole. I'd like to congratulate the Chargers on their victory. Eagles, Cowboys. Tell you what, let's circle back and pick this one before real things next. Okay. Quickly, Titans, Dolphins. 1, 2, 3. Dolphins. Packers, Giants. I don't know if it's quite 1, 2, 3, but
damn near 1, 2, 3.
Tommy DeVito, can he make these interesting? I think this could be interesting at home. You know, the Packers are 6.5-point favorites. I'm rooting for the Giants because, you know, and root for the Titans. All these 4-win teams, you want them to win games. So the Commanders' draft status looks even better by the end of the weekend. But with the Giants, like, they're pesky. And on any given week, they can find a way with Wink to generate a bunch of pressure or do wacky stuff. And DeVito's playing better than he has any right to be, which is still not good, but is not unplayable. I'm still going with the Packers.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm still going with the Packers, Greg. I love that you explain all of that, but I'm going with the Packers respectfully.
Who wins more games the rest of the season? The Giants, Titans, or Commanders? All 4-win teams right now.
Titans.
Interesting. I actually think I have to look at schedules, but I'd actually probably pick the Giants. I'm also, again, personal bias because I've seen
the Giants have two dates with the Cowboys also.
Oh, never mind. Never mind. All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, we will talk about and pick Eagles, Cowboys, and then it is time to wrap up the week with real things real people said into real microphones. It's Friday. Wrap it up here on the Hoffman Show. Team 980 always live as well on the free Odyssey app. All right, Anthony, we got one game left to pick. It's the Sunday nighter, Cowboys, Eagles. Who you got?
Mr. Craig Hoffman.
Mm-hmm.
How about the Cowboys? I got the Cowboys.
I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm going Cowboys as well.
I
If
mean,
this was a playoff game, I'd go the other way.
Oh, yeah.
But-
playoff games, I
But
would have
I think the Cowboys need this game to prove to themselves. I think it's going to be hilarious watching everybody in Philadelphia freak out. The Eagles are just fine. It'll be a close game. By the way, the over-under, the total in this game, 51.5.
Good gracious.
Monster number. It's going to be high scoring. Cowboys have been awesome at home.
Mm-hmm.
It will not surprise me, of course, if the Eagles win, but I'm going to pick the Cowboys.
I mean, they should have won the first game if Dak doesn't step out of bounds on the two-point conversion, if the tight end moves the ball over
Yeah,
6
just like
inches.
unlucky type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at home, Eagles trying to find it a little bit. Cowboys absolutely rolling. See what happens on Sunday night. All right. I'm excited for this. It is time for Real Things in a very special edition.
Real things.
We're not going to be set this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right. One of our favorite segments to play for you, audio-wise, here on Real Things is Who He Play For. A TNT classic. We like to play along with who we play for. And last night, with the NBA's in-season tournament, they did a crossover between ESPN and the Turner fellows, which meant Stephen A. Smith got pulled onto the TNT set to play Who He Play For.
Ooh, pressure's on. Here it is. Here it is. Player number 1, Ish Smith.
Oh, Anthony, I actually know this one.
Stephen A. Smith.
I actually know this one. Do you know this one?
I don't.
Okay, I know this one. One, because I saw this clip earlier, and two, because the Wizards have played this team twice this year already, if not 3 times.
And you've seen them.
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith.
Where he was last year. I know where he was last year.
You going to get a guess in, Anthony?
Is he Detroit now?
Let's see.
The
Charlotte.
Hornets.
I was thinking of Wizards.
I think he was on their team last year, too.
No, he's in Detroit last year.
Number 2 is Damian Jones.
Damian Jones is the player here, Anthony. Damian Jones. I'm going to pause it real quick. Damian Jones. I'm not going to lie. I don't know who Damian Jones is. I don't not only know.
I know he used to play for the Warriors. That's all. And the
Are
Kings,
you sure?
I think he used to play for the Kings and the Warriors.
I don't know where Damian Jones went to college. Wait, is he the kid from Oregon? Damian
I couldn't tell you that either.
Jones.
Kings and Warriors, I bet.
Okay. Well, now I know where he plays because when I looked him up, obviously it showed. That was a flaw in the system here. Let's see. Stats. Wow, he's been in the NBA a long time. Oh, that Damian Jones. Yeah. He did play for the Warriors. He was on the title teams.
Yep.
On the bench. He's played for Atlanta, Phoenix, LA, Sacramento. There you go. LA again. Utah. And this season, Anthony, what's your guess?
Oh, I don't have a guess. I don't know.
Okay.
Chuck, help me. Chuck, help me. Oh, don't. You're asking for the wrong guy.
No, this is a tough one.
Charlotte Hornets. And we just had a Hornet. I was going to say Brooklyn.
Cleveland. Strike 3 and I'm out.
Number 3.
Cleveland.
Yeah, you got that.
Cleveland.
Dante Exum. Oh, where did he just sign?
I couldn't tell you him either.
Dante Exum, Australian.
I know he used to play for the Magic
And
the Jazz.
Used to play for the Jazz, went back to Australia, came back to the league with the Magic. That was going to be my guess, the Magic. He's somewhere that's like good.
Good.
I think good-ish, maybe. I don't know. Or is he in like the Brooklyn kind of thing? I'm gonna say he's in Brooklyn. And the Wizards are gonna see him tonight.
I don't have an answer.
All right, go ahead.
Hell no.
He just talked about it today. He actually started for his team last night.
Come on, man.
I mean, give me
The Knicks.
All right, I'm going to give you a hint.
He started for his team last night.
He's in Texas.
Oh,
In Texas.
oh, there's 3 teams in Texas, man. Well, he was,
The Rockets.
Spurs.
He said Houston, but it's the Dallas Mavericks.
Of course, we
Bruh.
picked the other one. Harder than it looks. That television, who he play for. All right, that's our show. We'll see you Monday. The Hoffman Show, Team 980. Have a great weekend, everybody.